Hi, this is Rob. Welcome to this video in a Cumulus Cycles JavaScript playlist where I'll show you how to load external data using AJAX. AJAX stands for Asynchronous JavaScript and XML. In a nutshell, as this page indicates, it's the use of the XML/HTTP object to communicate between the application served in the web browser and a backend server. Although AJAX can be used to transfer information in multiple formats, in JavaScript, it's most common to deal with data in the JSON format. The benefit of using AJAX in your web applications is that it lets you load data from a server after the web page is loaded in the browser. Then you can use the data to dynamically display content on the web page. For example, in this web page, I'm displaying a list of contacts. However, if I jump into the code and comment out the load data function and reload the page, you'll see that I no longer have the list of contacts. And if I uncomment the function call and save, now we see the contacts again. And if I go into the network tab in developer tools, we'll clear it and reload the page, we'll see that there's a request for a contacts.json file, and the request type is XHR. If I click the contacts.json file, we can see an HTTP GET request was made to the server for a contacts.json file in a data folder. If I look at the response, we can see it's an array of JSON object literals. Now let's jump back into VS Code and see how this is implemented. In the index.html file, I have an unordered list with an ID of contacts list. I'm then including two JavaScript files, a contacts.js and a scripts.js. If I look at the contacts.js file, it's just a constructor function which takes a name, email, and cell, and then sets the properties for an instance of a contact object. Processing in the scripts.js file starts with the window onLoad function, and it calls the load data function. The load data function takes data from a JSON file, then instantiates an instance of a contact for each contact in the file. Then it sends the contact to the add contact function to display the contact on the page. If we look at the contacts.json file, we'll see the same array of object literals that we saw in the network tab in the browser's developer tools. Expanding the load data function, we'll see that I start by instantiating an instance of a new XMLHttpRequest object. The XMLHttpRequest object is used to make a request to a web server for external data after the browser has loaded the page. As previously mentioned, this allows us to dynamically update the page with data that wasn't available when the page was initially served. And in the case of this example, the data is being served from the contacts.json file in the data folder. So with the XMLHttpRequest object instantiated, we can call open on it, making a GET request for the JSON file, and then execute send. We then listen for the onReadyStateChange function on the XMLHttpRequest object. When the function is invoked, we'll check to see if the ready state of this instance of the XMLHttpRequest object is equal to 4, and if the status is equal to 200. These two conditionals combined will indicate that we have a successful response from the request. Since data is transferred from the web server to the browser as a text file, we'll then call the parse method on the JSON object, passing it the response from this request, and store that in a contacts object. When the page loads, I log contacts to the console. So if we jump over to the console, we'll see that contacts is equal to an array with 3 object literals. Back in the code, once I have contacts, I'll loop through the array using a for each, and each time through, get the current element and pass it into an ES6 arrow function as a variable contact. Then I'll create variables to hold the contact's name, email, and cell with the values of the properties in the contact object. Then I'll take those values and use them to instantiate a new instance of a contact and pass the contact to the add contact function. The add contact function takes one parameter, which is an instance of a contact object, and it uses its properties to display the data on the page as a list item in the unordered list. If you saw the prior video in this playlist on DOM manipulation, this function should look familiar to you. It's the same function that I used in that demo. I start out by going to the DOM to get the contacts list element, which is the unordered list, and then I create a new list item. Then I'll create an anchor element, set its href attribute equal to mail2 and the value of the email property on the contact object, and then create a text node for the contact's name and append it to the contact anchor. I then create a span element for the cell, set its class name to hidden, and then create a text node with the cell properties value from the contact, and then append the contact cell text to the contact cell element. I'm then creating another span element and putting in a variable named contact cell launcher element. This element has a class name of alert with a text node of show cell. I then append the contact cell launcher text to the contact cell launcher element. If I go back to the browser and inspect the show cell text, we'll see it's the span with the class of alert and the text of show cell. The span with the cell number in it has the class of hidden, so it's not displayed yet. However, if I click the show cell text, I see the cell number for the contact displayed. And that's done by adding the click event listener to the contact cell launcher element. When each contact cell launcher element is clicked, I'll add the hidden class to the class list for the contact cell launcher element, which will hide the show cell text. And then I'll remove the hidden class from the class list on the contact cell element, and that's what displays the contact cell number. Finally, I'll append the elements to their parents, and then append the contact list item, which is the list item element, to the contacts list element, which is the unordered list. And I'll do that for each element in the contacts JSON array. So that concludes this example of using AJAX in JavaScript to load dynamic data. I hope you found this interesting, and I hope to see you again in another tutorial on the Cumulus Cycles channel.